Hey everyone, you're listening to the Simply Smarter podcast. Our goal is to help families navigate some of the areas surrounding the college prep process, which includes providing college and ACT-related advice, not just for students, but their families as well. This is my co-host, Caleb.
Listen each week to find out how students can score better on college placement tests, learning techniques and methods that build confidence, beat test anxiety, and identify strengths within each student.
Don't forget to stay in the know by subscribing to our podcast. Welcome back to the Simply Smarter podcast. I'm your co-host, Jill, and this is Caleb.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back.
Yes.
We're excited to be hosting again. It's been a little while.
It's been a minute.
Took a bit of a break.
Yeah, but we're back.
Here
we're
we
back.
are.
We have some things to talk about.
Yeah.
So,
What are we getting into today?
man,
Oof.
well, clearly ACT stuff.
Of course.
Most of what we talk about.
Yeah, that's true.
But there has been a little bit of confusion I've seen lately about how many times to take the ACT.
That's interesting.
What's a valid number?
Yeah. What is the right number, Jill? Right now. Give it to me.
Right for you. For me, it was 1.
Me too.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you remember when you took the test the first time?
Yes.
Was it the best Saturday you'd ever had?
Oh, clearly we are on different pages.
I don't remember mine. I had my
don't?
I had my second major concussion the week before I took the ACT. So I didn't go to school all week. Like I was just
Out of it.
my brain was
You really
scrambled.
medically didn't remember it.
Yeah, I literally don't remember it. Pretty awesome, right?
No, I remember I was in my science class. That was my science class.
Oh, cool.
In the science room. And took it on a Saturday. I remember where I was sitting and honestly just felt like intimidated and a little overwhelmed. And I was like, I don't know. I'm hoping it's good enough.
Yeah.
So
And it was.
It was.
And
Thank
it was.
goodness.
I love it.
So, but I didn't have all the tools that we have nowadays and
It's a
the
different world.
resources and yeah.
Like sometimes I think we forget that there aren't any more colleges, generally speaking, in the U.S. In fact, many have closed over the last 5 years or
True.
10 years or so.
Or a year and a half.
Or even a year and a half. You're correct. But there are so many more students going to college now than there were 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago.
Yes.
And it's just a different landscape. It's so much more competitive. And of course, that price tag. So anytime we can
Yes.
take an ACT and get some scholarship money, that's always a
Absolutely.
positive too.
I believe so. I believe it. Yeah. And it also kind of depends on what schools you are applying to, right? So I was talking to my neighbor this week and I said, it's almost time for you. Like what schools are you looking into? And, where are you going to go look? And she actually just visited KU. So that was
Cool.
exciting for her. And yeah, she
that's
may
fun.
go there. We were talking about Arkansas and that in-state tuition program.
Yeah.
And so I said, well, build your list, 5 to 10 colleges, knock them down. This is the summer to go venture out and look at
Yeah.
them and see what's going on.
Get a feel. And
Yeah,
no, that's great.
it's an exciting time for
I like that.
a lot of group of kids in my neighborhood. They're all like juniors. So
Oh, man.
I'm like, come and talk to me. I'll help you. I'll help you with
That's
all the
awesome.
things. But yeah,
That's cool.
Kind of rerouting back to what schools are you applying to?
Yeah.
Do they require the ACT? Is it optional?
Right.
Is it
Do we know yet?
no?
That's the challenge,
Not
right?
for these juniors.
I am so sorry, families out there who are trying to navigate this process that is confusing in a normal year, but extra confusing when colleges aren't making decisions until the last minute, right?
Yes.
And good case in this, like last week you reached out to the University of Missouri.
I did.
And Mizzou responded with a very interesting response of, hey, we haven't changed anything for decades, but we're continuously making changes.
Yeah.
And it was
Kind of vague.
and it was actually, the word was constantly making changes. So like,
Right.
again, it was just kind of a funny way to phrase it all. And it didn't say anything, but it said everything. Does that make sense?
It didn't make sense to me. No. So
Exactly. And again, they're keeping it open because they don't know. They still don't know what it looks like. In that email, they responded and said like, "Hey, you know what? This is the first time we've done this. Our students who first did this are just now finishing their first semester.
yeah.
We'll let you know because
Right.
we don't know how they've done or what the future holds for us. So
everything has been so up in the air the past year and a half.
Yeah.
So we continue to search for what the colleges are looking for class of 2023 and beyond.
Yeah.
And we just don't know because the colleges don't know.
Right.
So, I mean, we obviously want to let our listeners know when we do know all the things, but.
And there are some constants out there, right? Like University of Nebraska, they have declared until the class of 2025, and again, they always have the right to change their mind, but until class of 2025, they are test optional.
Yeah.
They recommend taking an ACT, but it's not required.
So let's dig into, we're kind of jumping around on our outline,
all over,
if you may, a little bit, but let's talk about that test optional piece, because
what does it mean?
Right. Like, if you can take a test, take a test.
Right.
You know, like if you're going to get a 31, take the test.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Take it, right?
For sure.
If you have that option, go ahead and do it.
And test optional means a lot of different things, which is kind of tricky, right? Mm-hmm. Different schools use that term in a way that's opposite from another school. So when test optional started becoming a bigger trend 15, 20 years ago, most schools were calling themselves test optional because a student could select to send AP scores, or they could send SAT subject scores, or they could send something else, some other kind of exam, or an ACT or an SAT, of course. They were test optional. The student got to choose which one, right? Now test optional has a connotation that you don't have to take the ACT and you can still get accepted. Mm-hmm. And I think that's more along the lines of where we are now.
Yes.
Except for it's still not, again, sometimes we read test optional and we think test blind. And those are two very different things.
Right. Talk about that for just a second.
Yeah. So test optional, students typically colleges still want to see the scores just so that they can make the best decision possible, especially in this era where school has been pretty funky over the last 2 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So grades may not mean exactly the same thing. Many schools have gone pass fail. So like, how do you evaluate that information?
Right.
The ACT kind of provides a little bit more context in that realm. And so colleges still want it. Mm-hmm. And therefore they're going to accept students at a higher rate for those who do submit scores than who don't. It's just a natural tendency, right? Yeah. If you don't submit scores, they assume, for better or for worse, that you didn't do as well as maybe you actually did. Mm-hmm. So again, keep that in mind. They may be test optional where you don't have to submit them. That's fine, but kind of keep in mind the ramifications of acceptance or scholarships and things like that.
Yeah.
Test blind, on the other hand, means like, hey, they don't even have a place to put that information, that score, into the system.
There's no checkbox.
Which means like literally they won't take it into account. Right.
That seems odd. I mean, it just seems like they've been doing this for so long, and whether or not that's a good thing or a bad thing, I guess we'll find out over the next few years.
Right.
But it does seem strange.
Yeah. I mean, we've been forced into this situation much faster than most people figured we would.
Yes.
That's for sure.
Yes. I know. So true. Okay. Well, thanks for explaining that a little bit more in depth. Another option is if you start with a lower score and take the ACT and then, okay, this is my score, but I don't feel like I did that great. Like, it was an off day. I had a concussion.
Yes.
Things were off, personal issues, or, you just didn't feel good, whatever it may be. And then you go through ACT prep. Right. And you learn those different strategies. Mm-hmm. You learn the timing piece.
Yeah, the pacing.
Whoa, that's huge.
For sure.
And then you just feel more confident. You feel so much more confident going into a test after you've taken some kind of ACT prep. Yeah. Take it again.
Right.
Take it again.
Absolutely.
You will do better. You will do better.
For sure. And we've kind of been on an interesting journey through all this, right? So one of the big things that's changed some of our general recommendations is that during COVID, ACT changed their recommendations. They've said, hey, you know what? After decades of saying we don't want students or colleges to evaluate super scores for students, they are now on board, right?
Right.
So now super scoring is going to be more and more common as we continue on in this admissions journey, right?
Yeah.
And I would say probably roughly 2/3 of colleges will super score an ACT now compared to maybe 20% 2 years ago.
Yeah, which is great for students.
That's fantastic, right?
Yeah.
So historically, I mean, we've been in business for almost 16 years. For 15 of those, we were saying, hey, take the test one time and be done with this stupid thing, right? Let's do our absolute best. Let's put our best foot forward and move on and focus on all the other good stuff, right, in life.
Right.
Now, again, with super scores, maybe we really do take it 2 or 3 times intentionally. Maybe we take it one time and we do really well, but there's a section that we didn't do quite as well in.
Right.
Now we can focus in on that one section for the next test date, and then the super score gets bumped up, right?
Absolutely.
It's kind of great.
Absolutely. I mean, some students get burned out by the science section.
Oh, yeah.
They're just tired.
Right.
They've been thinking really hard for, 2 hours, over 2 hours.
Right.
So they're ready for a break. So, take it again. I really wish the section retesting would have come into play.
We were pretty psyched about that.
A lot. Yes, that would have been so beneficial for students, but it just never really happened. So
they may circle around and do that again, but at this point it's on the back burner for sure.
Yes. Yeah. Let's talk about scholarships for a little bit and scholarships / honors program. So, maybe you say you take, March 1st is the state of Kansas juniors. They're all taking the ACT on March 1st. All right. Say that's going to be your first test. Great. Wonderful. You get a 27. Okay. That's a solid score. Yeah. That's really great. Honors program starts at 28. What are you going to do? Take the test again.
Take it again.
Take it again.
You're close.
Yes.
But again, take it again when or if you're prepared.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
And again, I know people are going to be annoyed with me on this one probably, but I don't understand ever doing anything unless you are ready and wanting to do your best.
Right.
And ready to do your best. Again, I don't know any student that walks into the ACT and doesn't want to do their best.
Correct. But I do know students who walk into the ACT and say, I'm just going to take it and see what my score is.
And they're not prepared the way that they need to be to get that score, right? It's different. It's a different situation of knowing what your goal score is versus knowing your goal score and preparing for that goal score.
Right. And I do think it kind of knocks down your confidence too, because we have had students that come in for our free practice tests on Saturday morning. I'm just going to take it, see what my score is. And they're really disappointed.
Oh yeah, for
because
sure.
They're, good students.
Right.
Right. They
Absolutely.
apply themselves in school.
Yeah. A's and B's and didn't come close to what they hoped to actually score.
Correct.
I talked with a family just this morning and they took the October test. Their student is a junior and that student scored a 22 and they were expecting something in the high 20s or 30 mark because their daughter goes to a very, very, very good high school and does well in school. Yeah. But it's just different.
It is.
And a little side note, if I may.
Please do.
Again, context, right? So 22, again, it's not a 30. Don't get me wrong. It's not a 28. But guess what? It's the 64th percentile.
Yes.
That's better than basically 2/3 of college-bound students.
Yes.
So again, that context of even how the test is scored, and we need a framework to work from. And unfortunately, we just assume that these scores are linear, and they are 100% not. Right?
Correct.
So we want to make sure we kind of understand that and know kind of what our scores actually mean.
So, and that's a good leeway into, I was going to talk about the national average that went down.
Yeah.
This year for this past year, it's now at 20.3,
right?
Which is the lowest it's been since over a decade.
Right.
So it's low, right?
And,
I mean, 20, right? And that's not horrible.
No.
But that's the average.
Yeah.
But it's lower.
And again, the context of what's been going on, man, I'm not surprised.
Right.
I've been dumbfounded over the last year and a half of just the gaps that are missing. And more than even just over the last year where most of the students in our area have been in person, it was that spring semester of 2020 where students just, man, it was awful. Yeah. They learned almost nothing. They covered almost nothing. And if they took Algebra 2 that semester, they missed a huge chunk of material that they'll never learn again. Right. They moved on to pre-calc or calc or whatever it may be. And now they're done with that.
Yeah.
And there are going to be some
catch up.
questions that, again, we'll help them learn some new strategies to do better on those.
Yep.
But we don't pretend we can teach. Again, for instance, a lot of students will spend 2 weeks on matrices in the math section, which is generally learned at the end of Algebra 2.
Okay.
We can't spend all that time reviewing those one pieces, that one topic, when we're talking about maybe there's going to be one question on the ACT, right?
Yeah, right.
But if you've never seen matrices, you're probably not going to get that question right now.
Yep.
So we'll refresh. We'll help you learn and focus on the right things and the right strategies. But again, school and COVID and everything else has just hurt students in that way, where there's just some questions they just can't get right.
There is. And now is a great time to come in and do the ACT prep, because we can help you fill in those gaps, right? Like if the national average is 20.3 and you come in, you get, your baseline score, and then you do prep, like you can blow that national average out of the water,
right?
Just some hard work and dedication and filling in those gaps where they need to be filled in.
For sure.
And we've talked about that for the past year and a half, when everything shut down, when COVID became a huge thing, it was like, man, this is going to last for a really long time. Like, how long is this going to last? Like, what are the repercussions?
What are the impacts? Yeah.
Yes. And especially for our students. Right? Like, what are the repercussions that are going to happen on our elementary, middle school, and high school students?
Right.
And we're now seeing that.
Oh, yeah,
because it's been long enough.
Right.
And so, I mean, they're going to do fine. They're going to be great.
Right.
They are going to be great. We have full
kids
confidence
are
in that. Yes. But it is a struggle.
Yeah.
But we want to help. We want to help them with that. We want to help them overcome that. So,
for sure.
So give yourself enough time to meet and reach your goals. We have kind of going back to the whole COVID thing. We've seen a lot of seniors come in this year, and they waited
a lot, and some of that is due to the colleges just not making their decisions until April, May, June of 2021, earlier this year. But man, I've never seen so many seniors in the fall.
And they have to do it.
Yeah,
I mean, now's the last chance.
Last opportunity. Like the December test coming up, we still have quite a few seniors, and by this point in a normal year, we've moved on to the junior class completely.
Yes.
And it's just an interesting extra piece of phenomenon that, and now there's just more pressure. There's more everything.
Right.
So again, if we can plan ahead and think about like, hey, how many schools are on our list? There, we have 15 right now. We're going to narrow it down to 8 or 10 down the road. But knowing that at least 20, 30, 40% are going to require an ACT.
Yeah.
Let's focus on the end goal, and that's getting into colleges that are going to be a good fit for us.
Yes.
And maybe that does include a little bit of prep here or there.
Yep, absolutely. I agree. What else? What else should we talk about? Should we talk about the PSAT a little bit, or?
Yeah, we can talk about that a little bit.
Should we skip it?
I mean, it happened last month, right? It was just a little over a month ago now. Yes.
I have a lot of parents say, well, my student took the PSAT and he did really, really good at it. So we're just going to wait until the ACT and then just take it. And it's like almost the same score, right? I'm like, oh, well, that's one way to think of it. Not entirely accurate, but
sure.
It is a good indicator of how they may score on an SAT or an ACT. But it is different.
Right, for sure. Different. Yeah. First of all, most students who should prepare for the PSAT, it's actually a very small number of students who we believe should actually be preparing for it. Becoming a national merit semifinalist and therefore a finalist is really the big win there.
Yes.
And that big win is about the same scholarship students were getting 20 years ago of $2,500 total. And since colleges cost 2.5 times more than they did 20 years ago, right. It just doesn't mean nearly as much.
And why haven't they increased that scholarship amount? What's going on? Hello?
I don't know.
Make it more desirable.
I mean, they only have so much funds.
Do they, though?
It's probably an endowment that's, I don't know.
Someone can give more.
I'll dig into that for us.
Please do.
So, and fewer schools are actually offering full tuition scholarships and things like that. Again, the big one that always pops into my mind is OU in Norman, Oklahoma, where they still offer a bigger scholarship for national merit finalists than even ACT or SAT. But that's the exception to the rule.
Right.
Most schools will offer the same scholarship or more scholarship based upon a comparable ACT or SAT score. And again, it goes back to the PSAT is just a shorter, easier version of the SAT. And so we can't even compare it directly to the SAT. And then we can definitely not compare that to an ACT, right?
Right. And colleges don't necessarily look at the PSAT.
No, they won't use those for admission at all.
Or your ACT scores. But
for sure.
So sure, take it if you feel like you're going to do well and you're applying for national merit, and you're going to get a good lengthy test underneath your belt, get some of those jitters out, get a little bit of experience.
It's good exposure, right? It mirrors the SAT. It's just a shorter, easier version. But if you think that that's going to translate to ACT world, unfortunately, it's just not going to do that.
Right. All right.
And same thing with a pre-ACT, to be honest, right? A lot of students take the pre-ACT during sophomore year.
Yep.
And again, it's a good precursor, but it is a shorter, easier exam because it's dedicated toward a younger audience.
Right.
And it's not generally reflective. Some students, and again, going back to like even some of the rationale behind it, not only are the questions more difficult, but it's a longer test, the ACT. So again, if a student has troubles focusing, they're probably not going to do as well on the ACT as they did on the pre-ACT because now you've taken this 2-hour test and made it 3.5 hours.
Right.
And little things like that can add up pretty quickly.
Absolutely. Yeah. So. Agreed. Well, good. So again, how many times do I take the ACT? It's going to be different.
It's going to be different.
Sorry, there's not a solid answer.
I wouldn't recommend you take it all 12 times.
No. Oh, for Pete's sakes. That would be horrible.
Your South Dakota just came out.
I know.
That was adorable.
That would just be a big waste of time. 12 times. Come on.
When I worked in admissions, I actually saw a student who took it 11 times.
Oh.
Ooh, yikes.
That's a lot. That's like a part-time job.
2 years worth of testing. What
I feel like he could have just gotten a part-time job.
She could have used her time very differently.
Oh, that's painful.
Anyway.
Painful. All right. Well, if you have any questions about PSAT, practice ACT, SAT, ACT prep.
all of it.
Anything. Just give us a call. Shoot us an email, enrollment@getsmarterprep.com. You can listen to all of our podcasts here. You can go back in time 2 years ago and listen to our very first podcast. We have lots of good, useful information if you want to skim through some of that. So anyway, find us at getsmarterprep.com. And as always, we offer free practice tests every Saturday morning.
That's true.
All right. Well, have a good week, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.